What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of the MSP Water Cooler Live. I am your host, Jonathan Schofield. My friends call me Scofie. And today, for the first time ever, I am thrilled to introduce you to the season 2 co-host for the MSP Water Cooler, none other than Jeffrey Newton, founder of the MSP Insider Show and co-founder of Sift.ai. And Jeffrey, I am so thrilled that you're here. Take a moment to say hi, and then we'll set the stage for everybody today.
Hello, everybody. You may or may not have seen me pop in every once in a while last year on this show. So super stoked to get the opportunity to show up more often, get grilled by MSPs because no one does it better, and offer you whatever I can from my years in the trenches and experience doing it.
That is right, man. We were so thrilled to have you. And those of you who have been with the show for a long time know that Jeffrey is no new face. He's been a special guest multiple times in previous episodes in 2025. And just a brief moment, Robert Gillette, if you see this, we love you and we miss you, and we hope to have you as a special guest again. Robert was an amazing co-host, and we are really grateful about all the time and effort he put into this. But I'm so thrilled you're here, man. For our viewers who maybe this might be your first time, or if you're an OG, just a refresher, this is not your ordinary podcast, live cast, let's get to people that want to blow hard and just talk about themselves the entire time. This is really meant to be practical, tactical, and valuable for you if you are an IT services business owner, MSP business owner. You are in leadership and responsible for revenue, sales, business development, marketing. Perhaps you are a sales professional, BDR yourself. If you are responsible for growth in any capacity in your IT services, MSP business, then this is your opportunity to engage with Jeffrey and I, ask us questions. And if it's a curveball or controversial, all the better. But we really sincerely want to know what you're wrestling with, what you're struggling with, what you're focusing on, what you're learning this month, this quarter, this year, relating to revenue, growth, sales, all of that. So here's the format. Okay? There's a lot of different ways you can ask us questions, but we have a preferred way, and we already have one person backstage. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, there is a StreamYard studio link, okay? Use that link and hop backstage into the green room. Now, I will see you. We will not bring you on stage immediately. When we do bring you on stage, we're going to give you about a minute and change to share what's on your mind, and make sure you have a working webcam or camera, and we can hear you on the mic. If I can't see your face in the green room, I probably won't bring you on stage, but that's preferred. We want you to hop on and actually ask us live the question that's burning in your brain. If you're not comfortable doing with that, you're not brave enough for that, that's okay. You're just like in your car, or you're not able to turn your webcam on, that's cool too. You can also comment your question on LinkedIn or YouTube, where this is also streaming right now, and we'll pull that on screen and address it as well. After we kick you out or we bring your question up, Jeffrey and I will take turns kind of addressing it. We'll banter on it for a few minutes, and then we'll roll into the next question. And Ron, this makes me happy. First of all, Ron, so glad that you're here. Longtime viewer of the show and participant in the show. Yoda looks like a superhero, which I'm assuming Jeffrey is Yoda. There's no way I'm Yoda. Am I Yoda? Who's Yoda, Ron? Who do you think is Yoda, Jeffrey? Does Ron call you Yoda?
He does, yeah.
All right, that makes sense. You guys know each other, so you're Yoda. That makes me happy. Ron says, I feel special. I was given 2 minutes last year. Surely more than that. Than that.
Each once a week, maybe.
All right. So we're going to jump right in. But before we jump right in, any thoughts, comments, observations, Jeffrey? How we feeling?
It's January, right? It's the first of 52 weeks to get this thing done. So if you haven't started planning for it now, is a great day to show up and ask the question of what you should have done for the last 3 months to be ready for this one.
There's a lot of 2026 left, but I remember this time 2025, and my brain is dizzy from how fast it went. Yeah, this is the time. If you didn't plan 2026, absolutely today is the day to start. And this is a great call for us to start talking about that. And I've got a few things for us, but we actually have our first guest backstage. So we're going to bring him on stage here. Luis, I see you. Your webcam is on. Luis is near and dear to my heart. He works on my team and he's not always able to make these. So I'm very curious to see what your question is. When I bring you on, Luis, you'll have about a minute to ask your question, make your observation, share what's on your mind. Then we'll kick you out, and then Jeffrey and I will riff. So without further ado, once more, if you're watching this right now, use that studio link on LinkedIn and get in the queue or ask your question in the chat. Do not be shy. Luis, how the heck are you, man? Good to see you.
Oh, blessed and unstoppable, guys. Appreciate you guys having me.
What's on your mind, Luis? What do you got for Jeffrey and I?
Well, I know how you think, Jonathan, but specifically for Jeffrey, but of course, all thoughts invited. So I've been doing this for a little bit, and it seems to me that the best approach, or at least the most gratifying and one that brings results, although it's a slow burn, is slowly organically building leads and community to eventually lead to the relationship that is the MSP partnership. And of course, there's variables with all things because there's so many things to consider as far as like reaching out to people and connecting with them and eventually becoming a provider for them. I'm super curious to see, Jeffrey, what are your thoughts on the best approaches and practices for developing said relationships with individual prospects? Or that's what's on my mind.
Luis, I absolutely love your question. I'm very keen to hear Jeffrey's answer. I'm going to kick you out of the studio here. Feel free to watch, to leave StreamYard and watch online. And also, this is a shameless thing, but if you want to also re-ask your question in the LinkedIn chat, it definitely helps the juice the algorithm a little bit. But for some context before you take a crack at this, Jeffrey, Luis works on my team. And there's two different ways that Luis functions on my team. So he's a business development rep. Actually, he's more than a rep. He is a business development juggernaut. And he represents us in business development, but he also represents all of our 40 MSPs across the United States in a variety of ways. So functionally represents them sometimes in cold calls, sometimes in other different types of campaigns. So his question does come through the lens of a service provider's question as well. So there's some context there. Take it away.
Yeah. Well, the one thing and the first thing that I loved about his question was really the one word that was in there that anchored the rest of the context around it, which was relationship. And the fact that he's even asking a question about relationship is a testament to probably the results that you see from him, but also then the thing that matters most, right? And I've said it till I am blue and purple and probably even red in the face at other times, where like the only true currency that matters in this space above all others is relationship capital or relationship equity. And the thing about that, like there's so many different even analogies or, I don't know, statements ripped out of books and everything else, whether it's like dig your well before you're thirsty, that kind of stuff. But the thing about it is you have to enter into the dynamic of the relationship, like genuinely seeking to understand or seeking to help, provide value, be useful. The thing that I found to be true or problematic in most cases is when, if you have these two circles, and I'll bring my iPad to these next time, Scofie, but if you have the two circles and it's not quite a Venn diagram yet because you haven't overlapped them, right? And you think about the conversation, the engagement, it could be a phone call, it could be an email, it could be an in-person, it could be a cocktail thing. Either way, if you look at these two circles as like prospect and you, one of the most fundamental misses that I see, especially early on in like a rep's experience, is showing up to where that Venn diagram should overlap with the same conflicting objectives, right? Someone comes to a first time appointment, someone comes to a networking event, someone comes to a conversation with you, generally seeking like help, guidance, information, something to help them on their journey towards the solution. But odds are when most of the sales folks show up, they show up with a different objective, which is I want the MRR, I want the customer, I want the contract. Like they're almost completely disparate paths, right? And like where they are in their journey. And as a result, it feels like one of those dynamics or one of those engagements that, like, I could just leave it right there. It feels that way, that we all know in the pit of our stomach, because that's how being sold feels rather than buying or being guided. And so the first thing is to really, truly like be able to disconnect from the outcome. You hear that all the time, but like your primary objective in every interaction with any prospect should be only to earn the opportunity to get the next conversation or the next step, whatever the step happens to be in the framework that you're using, but not to shoot all the way down there, right? Like it's just aligning and connecting at a human to human level so that you can earn the opportunity to not be ran away from if they see you walking down the hallway at the event the next time. It's literally like, would I want to go have a beer with that person? Would I consciously choose to spend the next 5 minutes with that person? Like that's relationship, right? And in this space, that's really just how that works. And there's like a bunch of other tactics and processes and everything else that you can really do to do it. But like it really kind of comes back to mindset first, and like genuinely showing up, caring, and intending to be helpful. One of the sentences that really unlocked sales and marketing for me about 12-ish years ago when I first started down that path was like your primary goal ought to be to enter the conversation that's already happening in your prospect's mind. To unpack that a little bit, it's really talking about speaking the language that speaks to the subconscious, like the stuff that they're saying to themselves about their situation, about the business, about the IT provider, about whatever. But odds are they're saying it inside, but they never even really externalize it.
Yeah.
Go use those words and get into that conversation that they haven't actually invited out into the world yet, and know how to enter that conversation. And once you do, it unlocks the second most powerful sentence I ever learned, which was that if you can articulate someone's problem better than they can, they will subconsciously and automatically associate you with the solution.
That's
so
right.
It's about messaging and positioning and then just genuinely caring. And from there, the recipe is pretty simple.
Oh man, there's so much juiciness there. One of the things I loved about what you said early on in your reply to Luis is disconnecting yourself from the outcome. And that's really, really key. I know he's listening and he's going to roll his eyes and giggle a little bit as I share this story, because I know for a fact Luis has heard me say this. But I'll ask you a question, Jeffrey, and I'll ask our viewers, has anyone seen the old movie with Sean Connery? I think it was in the 90s, but it was called First Night. Sean Connery, Richard. Anyone remember that movie? Do you remember the opening scene with Lancelot, who is not a knight yet? And he's got this sword on his back and he's walking into a village and he's like challenging everyone to a duel for money. Like, do you remember that scene?
No.
Okay. I recommend you go. Okay. If you've not seen it, I do recommend it. It's a campy movie from the 90s. It's fun. And fun in good ways and bad ways. But that opening scene, there's something that stands out in my mind. The character Lancelot, he walks into the village and he's challenging anyone to, I'm the best swordsman, and if you beat me, you can have all my money. If I beat you, you owe me money. And so this huge farm boy, twice the size of Lancelot, walks up and big broadsword on his back, and he says, "I'll take you on." And so they begin to spar, and the farm boy gets a couple really big, powerful swings in before Lancelot kind of sizes him up, and then in like a couple of deft, quick moves, effortlessly disarms this kid. Okay, and so he wins. And then the farm boy, as Lancelot is collecting his winnings, the farm boy pulls him aside. He's like, "Dude, you have to teach me." He didn't say dude, but you have to teach me how you did that. How did you do that? And Lancelot's like, I can't teach you. And then he's like, no, he keeps pushing it. You have to teach me. And then he looks him in the eyes and he says, all right, fine. Lesson number 1, you cannot care whether you live or die. And the farm boy drops his head. He's like, I don't know how to do that. And he walks away. I think sales, I share that story with new BDRs that start with me or my clients, right? I mean, like, if you come into the engagement with a potential prospect with this expectation, you have to win, you have to get something.
Yeah.
Like the commission breath do be strong, right? And if you detach yourself from the outcome, like you said, absolutely critical. But then everything else you said too, Jeffrey, I definitely also agree with. Like, why is it that the majority of IT providers I talk to tell me most of their customers come to them through word of mouth or referral? Okay. It's because the mental real estate of that prospect has already been brokered on behalf of the IT provider before they've ever opened their face. And because it came through a trusted channel, they already perceive you as the one who has the solution to their problem. How do you facsimilate that in a top of funnel business development initiative that earns trust in a credible way? And I think what you said about being able to articulate their problems better than they can, and that comes with an obsessive desire to understand who your customer is on like an existential level, not surface level. Like, it's like, yeah, a nonprofit should care about cybersecurity. Yeah, but we know they don't. Why? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
and I think we overcomplicate it because traditionally speaking as well, I used to always kind of equate the technical persona of MSPs, which for those that don't know me, I spent 18 years as an MSP, half on the tech side and half on the growth side. And what I noticed, because I'm not maybe your typical technician archetype, but I worked with them all. And I equate some of that to like the over engineering of the process as well, right? Like we overcomplicate everything. I used to just equate this through an analogy of actually like vehicles, right? Like, is it the Toyota or the Mercedes, just from like a service standpoint? And the issue, even with how do you enter, like, well, how do I know what problems they have? How do I know how to enter that conversation? It's like, well, first of all, you have to do what most never ever do, which is pick an ICP, or as our industry likes to call it, a TCP. But either way, pick the one person that you can have one conversation with and you can help them. And then you expand it and compound it out. But don't overcomplicate that either, right? Look at your current client base.
that's right.
Who are they? Where are they? How did they come? How did they get you? How long have you had them? Either way, okay, now you got that. You got it segmented. Great. Like, what are the top 5 tickets and or problems that you see at a macro level across that particular vertical's situation? Like, you're servicing them currently. Okay, so there's sort of a Pareto principle rule that if you just threw a dagger at any one of those 5 things in a conversation with an accountant that wasn't your client, odds are they're probably going to have at least some resonant frequency there on the topic or the problem that you're introducing. Bonus points if you can use the actual name of the application that you know that they're most likely to be using, and it does this weird finicky thing that isn't published anywhere. It immediately shows that you are a domain, you have domain expertise. You're not just someone trying to sell something. Like, it will pass the mental objection of, but does it work for me? Which invites you into the rest of those conversations because they're curious and they want the solution. So don't fight the innate and inherent thing that the business owner or the leader is looking for already, which is to solve their problems in their business or achieve their outcomes. Like, instead, it's more like jujitsu, where you use that inertia or that movement in your favor with them rather than fighting it.
I totally agree. Absolutely. I apologize. I accidentally pulled up that image a little too early. I need a producer to help with some of this stuff, and that may help in 2026. Just real fast as we kind of transition into part 2 here. First of all, we still have time. If you are an IT business owner and you have a burning question for Jeffrey or myself to tackle, you can ask us in the comments. Bonus points if you're brave and use the StreamYard link and join us on stage here, but no pressure. But as way of like a kind of transition here, I'm going to bring up, let's see here. Okay. I want this to be all of us here. Where did we go? StreamYard. All right, we'll just pull it up at once. So this was a poll that I ran, Jeffrey, in December. And I reached out to like 40 MSPs and I said, man, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and one of these 3 things be true in your business tomorrow, which one would you choose? I had 40 MSPs respond. And the 3 options, as you can see here, 10 times more leads per month, reducing or increasing your close rate by 50% or reducing your customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Okay. By 25%, 66% or 67% really selected 10 times more leads. Now you talk to MSPs every week, all the time. And I'm sure I've heard this my entire time in the industry, that leads is the biggest problem they're facing when it comes to growth. What are your observations on this?
Yeah, this is a perspective problem more than anything. What I have found and what I lived and experienced when I voted the same way, right? I just need 10 times more leads. And then when I set up the environment to be conducive to give me those leads, what I actually found is that I had to figure out how to close them, right? And by close them, I had to figure out how to convert leads into customers, and then more importantly, maintain them and turn them into raving fans. So like, yes, but the more leads, like the magical lead fairy isn't going to come save you, especially if you don't know how to close them or convert them. You made a really interesting point that is absolutely true around the difference between professional sales and order taking. And our industry gets this way wrong for reasons that we won't get into. But for the most part, if our industry is ever referring to sales, it has nothing to do with actual sales, and it has everything to do with order taking as our industry does it. So like if your sales motion looks a little bit something like this, or if you even ask these questions anywhere in your process of how many users do you have? Maybe you even call them employees because they're people, but how many users do you have? Like, what's your tech stack look like? How many devices? How many locations? Like, stop for a second and ask yourself what you're really doing. And all you're really doing is just aggregating quantities to punch into a quote, right? The quote that you're going to take 2 weeks too long to actually deliver, you're going to follow up on twice, and then you're going to forget about it and move on and probably deliver it electronically without actually having a proposal conversation. Like, it's all just order taking. There's some peripheral edges to that, but professional selling and sales, like if I gave you 10 more people to do an order for, like, sure, there will be some statistical anomalies to it where it's just like science will happen and eventually, you'll win some of them. But if you want actual growth out of those 10x leads, then you need to learn how to actually sell them, right? And by selling them, it's like guiding them towards the destination that they already want to go and not smothering them with the engineering mindset of solving their problem.
That's right.
Which is probably the most counterintuitive part of professional sales in a technical industry.
Man, you're spot on. And I see you backstage, Ron. We're going to pull you up here soon. So glad you're here. I just want to put a kind of a bow on what Jeffrey said there. If you're an IT business owner or a revenue person at a MSP, right? Sales, growth, whatever, and you've had the experience where you have a customer who doesn't like your proposal because it was too expensive. What they told you, it was too expensive. Those were the words they said, regardless of whether that may or may not have been true. This really demonstrates what you said about the difference between an order taker and a sales professional. If it's a race to the bottom and your IT services are just like a commodity to be transacted, then an order taker will do. But you do not sell pizzas or shoes or a SaaS product even that I can add to cart and check out. I've seen MSP websites where it's like literally they configure it like, hey, put in the number of employees you have. This is your quote. Sign up today. And they'll do it all there. And someone out there in the ether, if you have had an experience where that actually worked for you, please shed some light on it for all of us. But I've yet to see that work for any MSP. It's because to sell IT services, there are two things required. Well, there's a lot more required, but there's two fundamental things that must be there. You must have the technical acumen, yes. And let's just be frank. You said it yourself, Jeffrey, like this is an industry full of engineers and really smart technical folks. The technical competency is usually there, So technical acumen, really good. Business acumen, not the same thing. And I think a lot of IT business owners and revenue leaders conflate the two and confuse the two. It's like, I am good with IT, therefore my prospect will trust me. No, being good at your job is table stakes now. Being good at your customer's world, your prospect's world, is the new order. Actually, it's not new. It's always been for service providers and consultants and anyone who's going to come along and provide a business outcome to a business decision maker that they didn't have before you. So being able to articulate and speak in their language and articulate, like you said, Jeffrey, to articulate the problem better than they can. It's like, hey, Mr. Senior partner at this law firm, doesn't it suck that your billable hours are not what you wish they were because you are so bogged down with this administrative stuff and things are taking too long to get, whatever, right? And all of a sudden you're speaking in a language that they're like, wow, like Jeffrey gets it. Ron gets it. Luis gets it. All right. Ron,
Jared had a good question. Before you bring Ron in, Jared threw a question up there in the comments, and you were pulling it up anyway.
Yeah.
Because I actually was going to go here with part of my response too. Is like the three choices that you gave were sort of a fool's errand in some regards, right? Like there's a multiple choice, but it's going to be wrong either way. Because the issue there is like, well, if I increase my close rate by 50%, like you solved one problem, but you overcorrected for something, most likely. Where odds are, if you end up in that boat where you're closing now 50% more, but you either don't know how you did it, or you didn't do it predictably, or in a way that could be repeated, you probably aren't also qualifying out the business that you don't want either. And so the close rate is usually a death trap for trying to solve the other one, which is I just need more leads. If I have more at bats, then I'll get more XYZs to clients. So then I'll just go to, okay, great, I'll go to the win rate. But it's like, well, if you want a 100% win rate, like the best way to do that is to just tank your margins and race to the bottom, right? And like get your way there. So then which problem are we really trying to solve truly when it comes to the close rate is like a conversation I love really unpacking with MSP owners, because I've made those mistakes too and gone the other way. And eventually through all of those learnings, getting to the point where the system that we had built and the play that we were running for several years in a row, we were averaging about a 64% win rate. And it took so many micro adjustments and like lessons learned to get to the point where we could repeat that and predict it. But it was not by way of, sacrificing or overcorrecting for everything else along the way.
I think you're absolutely right to call me out on it being a little bit of a fool's errand. I absolutely was leading the witness a little bit. Yeah. What I was doing with that poll was I was thinking about all the conversations I had in 2025 with IT business owners and some of the common things I heard. And a lot of them will tell me, man, you get me in the room with the right buyer. Yeah. I've got an amazing close rate, right? And then I'm not convinced 5% of the market actually could articulate what their customer acquisition cost is to me. So I expected not many people to take that one because they're like, I don't even know
what that abbreviation is. Yeah, right.
So absolutely. I mean, to calculate close rate, part of it is like, well, you have to have some processes laid down and defined before you can even really be honest about what your close rate really is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like what constitutes a lead, what constitutes an ideal customer, who gets a proposal, who doesn't. There's people who would say the only time you send a proposal over and request signatures when someone's already said yes, right? Yeah. So if that's your definition, then you should have like an 80, 90, 100% close rate, So good question, Jared. I appreciate that. Good observations, Jeffrey. Ron, you've been waiting patiently in the green room, and I'm very much excited to bring you on stage. So I'm going to bring you on stage. We're going to give you a minute and some change to share what's on your mind. We'll kick you out, and then Jeffrey and I will riff. So here we go.
All right. Hey, guys. How are you? How's things going?
Happy New Year, Ron.
Happy New Year. How you guys making out? It's an excellent show so far. I think this is a really good opportunity for myself to ask the MSP insider himself a question where he normally is shooting the questions out. I came up with one listening to you. Cap it at a couple minutes because you could probably go on forever about this.
Yeah, oh, great.
From a high level,
yeah.
Given both your life experiences in the technology industry, which I'm going to assume is probably a combined 40 plus years. Where do you guys see this MSP slash TSP slash BSP industry in just a 5-year period from now, which is a 60 months blink of an eye? And I'll leave it at that. And I'd like to get your insight, which would have been different from 5 years ago, given the technological advances we see now.
Yeah.
Where do you guys think that this is going from a 30-foot view or 30-mile view, excuse me?
Oh man, I'm getting goosebumps, Ron. Anything else before I kick you out?
That's it. Kick me out. I'll see you guys next week.
Oh man, I love actually this is, for the OGs, we're actually moving to a bi-weekly schedule now.
Oh.
So not next week, but 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks. Oh, that's just my calendar. 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
wishful thinking.
Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.
Right.
But anyways,
Appreciate
thank
you
for your
guys.
question. This is awesome. All right, Jeffrey, you go first.
Objectively looking at that and really even kind of like looking back 12 months to then look forward 12 months to 5 years, right? I think the most sound articulation that I've heard and prediction, whatever you want to call it, that I've heard about this space for the direction came from Scott Chasen at PAX 8 at Beyond last year, where he really broke down the case for the actual transition for MSPs, for managed service providers, is to become managed intelligence providers, right? And like, there's a whole iceberg of figuring out what that actually means, and go watch his keynote even to figure some of it out. But the thing I want to parallel to where I believe and why I believe that to be true is going back to like, I don't even remember when it came out, the 70s, maybe, the DKIW pyramid, as far as like what you do with data and information and when and where and how it actually becomes valuable. If you think about MSPs and where they sit in how they serve any of their customers, which are businesses, the amount of context and information that they sit on is at the intersection of everything that's truly meaningful and valuable for your end client's business. But it's all trapped in terrible systems and terrible processes and tribal knowledge and all the other things, right? And so with the advancement of technology, with the improvements in AI, but also in automation, and then also the way in which the walls of the silos are coming down as far as your data goes, is it's such a rich opportunity to take the context, and that tribal context more than anything, the human discernment level of context, and unpack and unleash that for the different verticals that you serve. And it's such a quantum leap, really, in how we show up and how we provide service. And in some ways, it's also a few decades of a step back, like to the birth of when the MSP started too, where it was like the intelligent tech person who didn't just act like a tech person or like a tech department. Like, we cared more about what problem are they trying to solve and how can we enable that outcome using technology. We're taking that old truth of actually caring enough and compounding the ability to deliver it at scale with technology, with a level of contextual awareness that no human would have ever been able to do before. And so that would be why I would place my bet on the most likely evolution of the transition from MSP to MIP, as Scott calls it.
That's a rich answer, and I really appreciate that. I echo so much of that sentiment. I'm going to say something that I have said before on this live stream and in other venues as well. If you're a fan of the Fallout games, or if you've been watching the Amazon Prime show lately, there's a common theme, usually at the beginning of a game. War never changes. I steal that. I say sales never changes. There are some folks in our industry, Jeffrey, who have been saying that AI is the harbinger of the end of the service provider. There's been a lot
Yeah.
of people who are preaching doom and gloom, like this new wave. Like, if you don't adapt, if you don't
Yeah.
drink the AI Kool-Aid long and deep, you're out of business inside of 6 months or 3 months. Or like, okay, this isn't the first time that these harbingers have come out and said that the industry is shaping, and if you don't adapt, you're going to get swallowed up or die. And you can follow the trajectory of the industry fairly clearly, from the guys plugging in printers and copiers to the guys selling switches and connectivity, to the guys running trucks and fixing stuff, and then to the guys who got smart and were like, hey, what if I got paid every month and didn't have to work so hard, made more money? And then the MSP was born, and then cybersecurity, and then compliance, and now AI. And this is not the first time our industry, our very adaptable, versatile group of professionals and entrepreneurs and business owners, have been faced with incredible shifts in how they deliver, how they operate, how they serve their customers. But fundamentally, the thing that I want IT business owners to not be scared of is that the buyers actually haven't changed. Like, the way their problems manifest, the way you might solve those problems might change. But at the core, they will always need someone who can take the things that they are not capable of and someone to guide them through it. So yeah, you should absolutely be very closely analyzing how the market's shifting and how technology is changing the way that you should operate. But if you don't have the basics down of who your customer is, the problems you solve for them, and the value that you need to be able to articulate to them, it never mattered what wave was coming. You were already going to be crushed under whatever was coming. It didn't have to be AI. So that's my thought to this whole thing. Don't be scared of this new shift. Like, embrace it like every other shift. Digital transformation to the cloud, all of it. This is nothing new our industry has seen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, one of the first things, I thought this might be where you were going to go. I was interested to see where it went when you said there were like two things earlier about MSPs. And it immediately reminded me of a conversation I had time and time and time again in my earliest days, my first MSP. So 20 years ago now. And we would sit around the conference room table pretty dumbfounded at times of like, what does it take to truly be successful in this space? Right. And like time and time again, it proved itself to be true that you just needed to suck a little bit less than the next guy and stay in business a little bit longer. And everything else, to your point, like war never, or, war never changes. Like, it's very true in that regard as well. The strategy, the overarching objectives, they're going to remain the same. The tactics will change, right? The buzzwords will change. The marketing dollars will flow in different directions. But truly, like, if you can really find the essence of the DNA of the organization when it began and ensure that you're making decisions in the business that bring you closer to that versus further away, I think that's going to be part of the recipes for success for the businesses of the future, these next 5 years. Not that best practices don't have their place, but if anyone's followed me long enough, you know that generally speaking, after I use the word best practices, bullshit comes out of my mouth. So that's kind of what I mean about like distilling back down to the essence of the DNA that made you unique and special to begin with, and doing away with just wanting to be like everyone else, super green in a spreadsheet at your peer group, versus like actually valuable and meaningful to the customers who are going to refer you to get more.
That's right. That's right. I said in the chat that we have time for one more question, and I do see you backstage, Santiago. So I'm really excited to bring you on and hear your question. Luis has a comment for us. And first of all, Ron, hopefully that was a meaningful answer for you, and hopefully what you're looking for. Let us know if it's not, because we do have a little time. We can unpack it a little bit more. Luis says, I feel it's like a force multiplier. Yeah, we don't have Coopers anymore, but we still have devices for carrying liquids and solids and stuff. And we don't have cobblers anymore, but we all wear shoes. So force multiplier is a good way of saying that. All right, Santiago, give us what's going to happen. I'm going to bring you on stage. You'll have a minute and some change to ask your question, and then we'll kick you out, and Scofie and Jeffrey will riff. So here we go. Santiago, great to see you, man. How have you been?
Hey guys, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Yes,
Awesome,
we can.
awesome.
What's on your mind?
I'm doing great, first of all. Yeah, I mean, I work with Jonathan also in the IT services industry. I just started my career as a business development a little over a month ago. I guess my question is going to be a little bit more of a simple one because I'm still learning a lot of the industry, so I don't have a lot of insight to be asking super complicated questions. But the question is more like, how do you guys suggest dealing or like improving more on the pitch aspect of the services? I feel like I've been struggling. The part that I've been struggling with the most is getting cut off in the middle of the pitch. And it's mainly because I think people don't understand exactly what we do in those first few seconds. And already just with a few prospects that I've been able to connect with, I get started, I only get a few words in, and then instantly I get cut off and I don't have a chance to fully explain or delve a little bit deeper. So that's like a part that I've been struggling a lot. So I just wanted to get some more insight, especially from you, Jeffrey, as well on how you would deal with those things, like from the mentality of like a new business development rep.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for your question, Santiago. We very much appreciate you. We're going to spend some time here. Before you answer, Jeffrey, just a little context. I would like everybody in the chat to just shout out Santiago and welcome him to our industry. So he works for an MSP in California now, just recently started, and he's in the trenches doing cold calls. He's starting to have these business conversations with prospects, which is some context around where his question came from, Jeffrey. So if you're watching this right now, show Santiago some love. We appreciate you. Welcome to our industry, and thank you for your question today. What's your response for him?
Yeah, the way I like to look at this, it actually came out of my observation of running ads and like running content, which again is more about messaging, positioning, and then putting it in front of the right people. But the observation that came true and really kind of a macro level observation of what the social world has created, social media world has created, is there used to be a lot of talk about like the attention economy, even several years ago. And that part was true for the time because like it was easier to get attention in places and spaces that you couldn't before, to get seen, to be observed. What that question was really getting to the root of, I think, is a lesser observed piece of the byproduct of the last several years, which is it's no longer necessarily about attention or just getting in front of the right people, because we have been desensitized to the barrage of input that comes at us. And we as humans are pre-wired for resistance rather than acceptance. It comes from the caveman days. And so if you look at the compounding amount of clickbait inputs that are shoved our way, there's this evolution where it's not so much about the attention anymore, but it's about the consideration. So you need to optimize for relevance so that you can get past someone's consideration window. Well, what's a consideration window? Let's just go back to social media. Think about your scrolling, and it doesn't matter what platform it's on. There are things that might get you to stop scrolling, but you don't click on it. And if you don't click on it, then like it didn't pass the consideration. So you just write it off. That's sounds like is what is happening maybe on some of those calls that you're on, Santiago, is that the pitch, the messaging, the word choice, and or the tonality or how it's delivered might be relevant, but it's not passing that consideration window of the individual on the phone, which is why you're getting shut down and like sort of cut off mid-sentence even. Now, maybe that's because it sounds like kind of everything else, or it sounds like what they've already tried before. There's an interesting thing that has been evolving over the last couple of years with our industry specifically, and that is that MSP, whereas it used to be it was an easier sale when people saw MSP as the new opportunity to the solution to their problem. The market has evolved, right? More prospects have been with an MSP now, where it's not just a default solution that they'll blindly accept, which is now kind of going back to one of the opening pieces I said too, like resistance. When we're on that awareness ladder from a buyer standpoint, and it's no longer MSP is no longer seen as just the default or de facto even solution. That's the part we have to overcome, is that we almost need to come up with a new opportunity yet again, where we're not seen as just another MSP, because I've touched that hot stove before. It didn't solve my problems. And the main way to do that, in my opinion, is the consideration window by being relevant. Kind of goes back to my earlier comments about like entering the conversation that's already in their mind. One of the more tactical ways to like say, hey, that sounds really smart, Jeff, but what the hell do I do about it? Talk about their problems. Don't talk about your solution, right?
Wow.
Humans, again, are predisposed to agree on problems and challenge and or disagree solutions, right? Because there's multiple ways to solve something. So if you speak to the problems and you market and you communicate to the problems, it's going to be a much more receptive conversation that you won't get like chopped out at the knees on just because you're bringing this MSP thing to the table and they're like, well, I've touched that stove before and that isn't going to work for me. We'll do it differently next time.
I think that's such a valuable way of framing it, attention and consideration. And you think about a cold call, man, you have less than 10 seconds out of the gate to earn attention. And then if they give you anything beyond that, everything else is about earning the consideration. I shared this cold email that I received from an SDR literally yesterday with some folks this morning in a meeting. I shared it with them just as an observation, because I get a lot of them. I don't read a lot of them. This one I read, and the subject got my attention. It absolutely got my attention. And the subject said was, can I call you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time? That was the subject. Now, I have a lot of customers and partners, employees and colleagues and peers that might ask if they can call me. So it immediately got my attention. It was very plausible that it could have been a legitimate connection of mine asking to call me. So I opened. So kudos to them. Getting someone to open your email is not a small effort in today's day and age. And that worked. And then I read the email itself, and we actually analyzed it in a meeting this morning. And it wasn't the worst sales email I ever got, but it definitely did not go for the problem perspective like you just shared. It didn't earn my consideration, because it just said, this is, could we do this for you? And could we do this for you for free? It was basically went straight into, this is what, this is the what, not the why or the how. The consideration was not earned. Now, if they had known a little bit more about me, if they had been able to say something a little bit more relevant to me, like, hey, I know this thing about you is true, and I know this is something that is relevant to you. Is it worth considering? Might have been more appropriate. And it was like, hey, can we make these AI agents for you? It was basically what it was, with no articulating about what it is or what they do, et cetera, et cetera. So in a cold call, Santiago, first of all, keep grinding, control your mindset, and focus on what you can control. Like, you have no control over whether they pick up or if they're in a bad mood or if they're the right or wrong person, but you do have control over the energy with which you bring to each call and the mindset you have. Step one, earn their attention in the first 5 to 10 seconds. And you need to sound different than everybody else who's been begging for their attention, which is a lot. And that's not an easy thing, but do it. And then roll into, hey, I understand my perspective on who you are. This is what I understand you might be dealing with. If that's true, I think it might be worth us talking a little bit more. All right, that's my thoughts here. We're going to be wrapping up here really, really soon. And I want to make sure that I shout out everyone who's been participating. So Luis, we appreciate your question. Ron, we appreciate your question. Santiago, we appreciate your question. Everybody who's been engaged in the chat, we appreciate you. Our next episode will be 2 weeks from today. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Follow us on LinkedIn so you make sure you don't miss it. If you would like to be added to the Backstage Pass, and it costs nothing. It's just like, if you want this on your calendar and you want to hang out with Jeffrey and I on a recurring basis and make sure you don't miss one, hit me up in a DM on LinkedIn and just give me your email address, and I'll make sure I get that attached, and then you won't miss one. Any final thoughts, Jeffrey, before we wrap up? Observations for Santiago or anybody else?
Yeah, when you were given that closing point on Santiago's question, the thing that I remember the most about running and managing BDRs, SDRs, like the outbound, was to never underestimate the power of going back and listening to those calls, right? Because you can learn so much more when you're not in the fight. Like the fog of war is down. And if you use the tactic, the tried and true one, right? Like in a video call, you can do it this way, but where you watch it back with the audio off, but the video on, just to watch what's going on. And then you flip it and you turn the video off and you just listen to what was going on. And then the third pass is you have both on and you watch it and really pay attention to all of the layers of communication that are going on. You're going to learn so much more about how to connect with an individual and like break through, because that cold call is not about delivering your script. That goes back to what I mentioned before, where you have these two circles in a Venn diagram and people want two different things. Like I didn't want this cold call, but I did pick up because I wasn't sure if I needed to answer it. So don't throw your script at me. Like, yes, you have me. Now respect the fact that I'm going to at least give you the 10 seconds of attention to figure out if I need any consideration. So while you do need a script for the messaging and the positioning, the script is not about getting through the script. It's about having a conversation with the customer.
100%. A very timely response. Literally this morning, I was talking to a business development rep, and we were saying how he had a conversation with an individual. And the guy was just really cool, he said, and it was effortless to talk to this individual, right? And there was something about it where the two of them were really well connected and just like really jiving really well. And I encouraged him to make mental note, maybe even literal note, of every scenario where you did it good, where you did it really, really good. And then spend some time going back and reflecting on what made this so effective. What made this so good? Why was this different than every jarring, awkward, pitchy, commission breath sales shenanigans that came out of my face on other calls? Why was this different? And what you find is in a lot of cases, who picks up the phone on the other end is a major part of it. But then I try to turn that around and be like, okay, so if the energy the prospect brought is the difference, then maybe that's your job to bring that energy and level of connection. And it won't always work. And it's really hard when you're doing 80 or 100 calls in a day. Yeah. It's really hard to do that 80 times in a day. But if that was the difference, there's something there.
Yeah. Energy matches energy. It's a thing. Right?
That's right.
So
That's
show up, and I think it's a better way of looking at the fake it till you make it. It's like energy matches energy. So how do you want them to show up? Make sure you show up that way and they'll meet you there.
I totally agree. Jeffrey, how do you feel our first ever episode of 2026, the MSP water cooler? We had some great questions. We had some great banter together. You excited?
Oh yeah, I really am. This is great. It's a great example of pulling out some of the things that you kind of take for granted when either you've learned it the hard way or you've moved on to the next file in the filing cabinet. I just love the being put on the spot to figure out, how did I address that in the past, or how might I address that tomorrow as a result of the question? So looking forward to more.
I also want to encourage our viewers as we wrap up to think of Jeffrey and I as resources at your disposal. We will tell you, I promise you, if you ever abuse us as resources, we will tell you. Yeah. But if you want a thought, if you want insight, don't hesitate to reach out via LinkedIn, or if you have our contact information, don't be shy. If you didn't get a chance to get your question in and it was burning in the back of your brain, feel free to drop it in the comments even after this video, or if you're watching the recording back at a future date. We do monitor these and we will engage as we're able. And of course, show up in 2 weeks for our next episode of the MSP Water Cooler. We also are going to very likely have some special guests show up throughout 2026, so it won't just be Jeffrey and I every time. If you have an interest in participating, don't be shy. Let me know, and we'll catch you all in 2 weeks. See y'all later.